On Wednesday, the 28th of January this week, hundreds of displaced residents gathered at the Lagos State House of Assembly to protest the demolition of their homes. The protest, led by civil society groups, turned chaotic when police used force to disperse the crowd. Activist Hassan Soweto and fellow protester Dele Frank were arrested and later arraigned on charges of conspiracy to commit felony. Soweto now accuses CP Jimoh Moshood of personally assaulting and torturing him in custody. Joining us for this discussion to share more details of his ordeal is human rights activist Hassan Soweto. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having me.
First of all, I'm so sorry for what you've been through. I can see the bruises on your body, and I can see the bruises on your face. I can see the swollen lip. I read the rather harrowing detail of what you went through, but can you share with us the activities or the events of the past 48 hours?
Well, let me start by first commending the Nigerian people who rose up when this happened, clearly denouncing the repression of the Nigerian police and the state against not just my person, but thousands of protesters from communities facing forced eviction across Lagos State. What happened on that day is, again, another example of the viciousness of the Nigerian state and how they do not want to allow the voices of the people to be raised even against their policies when they are doing what is wrong. And in this particular instance, it wasn't just about any policy, it was about a land grabbing issue. And that explains how and why the Commissioner of Police became very much vicious around this matter, because he clearly had a vested interest. When I was arrested at a point where I had just finished addressing protesters, asking them to sit down while we are waiting for the members of the House of Assembly to respond to our request for protesters to be allowed into the designated portion of the assembly, for civic engagement with the assembly. I asked protesters to sit down so that gala and water could be distributed, and protesters complied and sat down. I finished that address because somebody carried me on their neck, and then as I was dropped down, I was backing the police, and that was when mayhem, started. They fired tear gas, grabbed me from behind. I must also commend, the protesters. About 3 young men tried to rescue me from the police. And in the process of doing that, I felt that they themselves could become a victim of the ongoing assault. I had to ask them to leave me and save themselves first. That was how the police were able to take me away. They dragged me into the assembly ground. Before I even got to the assembly ground, my glasses, without which I cannot see very well or function, had already been broken. My belt, everything broken. And then by the time we got into the assembly ground, he took me behind the security post, asked me to lie down, face down, and then the assault started. About 7 police officers, including the Commissioner of Police, Moshood Jimoh, started hitting me. In fact, Moshood Jimoh, while hitting me, was screaming that you said I killed babies in Makoko. How can you call me a baby killer? And he was screaming. He was hitting me with his boots and with punches. While this was going on, I kept trying to protect my head. And in the process of doing that, Moshood Jimoh could see that I could see what he was doing. That was part of the assault. And then the next thing was that he has this man to blindfold me. He tore my t-shirt, the white one I wore, and used it to tie my face. And then they anchored my hand behind and laid me on the ground again. So at this time, I could not even determine where the blow would land anymore. It became a free-for-all, which went on for several minutes. At a point, I received a blow to the back of my head, whether a punch or a kick, I could not tell. But I blacked out for a while. And then another kick to my groin woke me up. And that was how possibly I did not die. And then after this, they then grabbed me at the back of my head with the blindfold. And in the process also grabbed a pendant with a long chain that I had around my neck and started dragging me on the floor. So in this process, this pendant strangled my neck and I was gasping for breath. And they kept dragging me on the floor through the security post. Outside of the assembly main gate, I was dragged on the floor for how long I could not tell until I was dumped into a waiting police van. And then I was driven to party, still blindfolded, still with my hand cuffed to my back. When we got to party, I was dragged down the same way and dragged on the floor through the premises of party and up the stairs and dragged to some offices where I was processed. And then eventually I ended up in an office where my statement was meant to be taken. At this point, they removed my blindfold, and then they released my hand from the back and cuffed me from the front, which was a bit of a relief, and then demanded I write a statement. I told them that I would only do so if I was allowed to call my lawyer, which by my right and by law, I ought to be allowed to do. He refused to allow me and insisted that I would write a statement. At which point I told them that I would not write a statement unless my lawyer was present. This went on for several other hours. Then at a point, I think they had concluded that they were going to arraign me regardless of whether I wrote a statement or not. But because my entire body was filled with bruises, I mean, right now, I've been to the hospital yesterday, and I'm still going back again because I've been asked to do X-ray and an MRI scan because I have a pre-existing sleep disc problem on my back, which I've been managing for years. And right now, I have pain all over that place. So, but I had wounds, open wounds, which are now, drying up. And I think the police felt that they couldn't just take me to court with all of that. So they brought in a nurse and they wanted to treat me and give me an injection. So I rejected that. And that was how another round of assault started. The police man, whose name I do not know now, but there's another officer in the room whose name is ASP Taiwo, then ordered that my hand should be restrained again from the back, and that 2 policemen should hold me again so that I could be treated. They had iodine, they had syringe, they had just all kinds of injections and put with them. And then I started resisting. Because for 2 reasons. One is that it was the police that inflicted the injury on me. I will not allow them to cover what they had done. Then secondly, for a commissioner of police who had decided to personalize this issue and make it a personal issue between himself and me, there is no way I could allow a nurse, operating, under his authority, to give me an injection. So this went on for several minutes until the nurse herself told the officers that she could no more go through with this, that she could not treat a man without his consent. Because I told her that I know that just like doctors, nurses are not supposed to partake in torture. And if she went through with this, if I survived this, I was going to go to our professional associations and union to report her. Because I think that as professional, she ought to know what is right. So, but good enough for her. When the matter was really getting to a point where it was really, really very bad, she withdrew. And that was how I was left alone. And then myself and the other person who was arrested with Dele Frank were then driven to Ogba Magistrate Court on that same day.
That same day?
At breakneck speed. We almost, our vehicle, the police vehicle, almost crushed a lady who was crossing the road alongside, around that, is it Ordeal you call it now? Okay. When you are going towards Maryland.
Ikorodu Road.
Almost crushed her because we were driving on the BRT lane and at breakneck speed. Despite that, We didn't get to the Magistrate Court until maybe 5:30.
Wow.
Because by the time we got to the court, I didn't have a watch with me, but I could see that the entire court premises was empty. But there were two Kogi prison vehicles waiting. So apparently the Commissioner of Police had called them, asked them to wait because he needed to get Soweto to prison. But the magistrate had left, and then I then witnessed a charade of police officers and the prosecutor with their phones, calling the magistrate and just begging him or her, I don't know the gender of the person, just begging them to come. Just come and do this arraignment. And that was when I started laughing. And I told them that this illegality, we can't continue like this. So when they were defeated, they told us to enter the vehicle again. With their tails between their legs, drove us back to party. At which point, we were then taken to the counter. We were handed over to those at the counter. My phone was not returned to me, neither was it presented at the counter. When I asked the police officer who was holding the phone, the same as Pitaiwo, he told me he had clear instruction that I must not be allowed to have a phone call. And that was because clearly the Commissioner of Police knew that if I was able to make that call, because already many activists across the country were already looking for me. And even in Lagos State, activists were going from one police station to another. They requested to see me in order. They also went to the Commissioner of Police office itself at the State Command. So he knew that if I had that call, then everything would change. But we were not allowed. So we were taken to the cell where we spent the night. And in the cell was quite more of a free, we enjoyed freedom in the cell because we were with a fellow Nigerians, most of them who had done nothing at all. In the cell where I was, Singapore, we were 64.
64? In
that room. Nobody could sleep properly. 64, packed. When I checked the record of the police at the counter, the number of inmates, both male and female, because there were 2 male cells, and I don't know how many female cells anyway. So I know that there are 2 male cells. And for the 2 male cells, the record was 99. For the female cell, 7. In the male cell that I was, we were 64 when they did the head count yesterday morning. And when I discussed with some of them, most of them had done nothing. In fact, one young man was brought in around 10:30 p.m. He was a bricklayer who was coming from work. They went to set all these concrete slab. And then they were fighting in one community that was going through. The police arrested. These are the kinds of people that most of them that were in that cell. But we enjoyed our time in the cell, and the next morning, when we woke up, the police came to take us to Yaba Magistrate Court this time around.
To where?
Yaba Magistrate Court. Because apparently, they felt that if they took us to Ogba, maybe our people would easily know, that, since we had been there, the day before. But unfortunately for them, you can't hide, you can't abduct people and expect that you can hide them forever. So that by the time we got to the magistrate court, our own dear comrade lawyer, Femi Falana, senior advocate of Nigeria, was already at the court waiting for us. And that was where all of their game, whatever they had in mind, that was where everything ended. We got to the court around 7:07, because the policemen who were with us were complaining that why did we have to go to court this early, where court does not open until 9. But yet, we were not, our case did not come out until around 1:32 p.m. The whole idea was to ensure that our case would come up late, and then even if we were granted bail,
it would be too late.
It would be too late for us to do that.
So you go back to prison? So
that we can still go. Because the aim of the Commissioner of Police, Moshood Jimoh, is that we must go to prison. But unfortunately, again for him, because our lawyer was around, Femi Falana SCA, that plan could not work. The prosecutor tried to get the court to rule against the legal representation of Femi Falana, saying that because he's the son, he could not appear in a magistrate court. But unfortunately for him, the prosecutor himself is very ignorant of the law in Lagos State. So he was relying on, an ongoing matter in Oyo State, where the court had ruled in that manner that a son would not appear. But in Lagos State, because, the law is much more developed, there are copious provisions that says that a senior advocate of Nigeria is first and foremost a lawyer, and therefore can defend their client in any court whatsoever, including a customary court of law. So that was how Femi Falana was able to retain, the legal representation, which is the only reason why we are free today. Because even as I'm speaking to you, we have still not yet been able to perfect that. But we were released to commit Femi Falana on self-recognition, with the understanding that we are going to come back to court this way to come and perfect that.
When is the next court appearance? The
next court appearance is in March. And it's not surprising that you have that kind of long adjournment.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the charges, 5 count charges, these are ridiculous, shameful charges that is in contravention of the freedom of assembly as enshrined in the Constitution. The charges simply says that we protested, and in the process of protesting, we blocked traffic. In the process of protesting, we sang abusive songs. In the process of protesting, we wanted to cause breach of public peace. The interesting thing about these charges is that there are no possibility of having any real evidence to support any of this. The world global media organizations were at the protest yesterday, and they saw at the point where we had tough time with the police. They were at the period when the police was trying to make the protest impossible. In the first instance, Commissioner of Police refused to accept our letter of notification. In fact, he took Commissioner Falana's call to him on the morning of the protest, around 5 a.m., before he reluctantly agreed that we could even gather at Kejanda Bridge. Otherwise, the plan was that as soon as we begin to gather that morning by 7 a.m., we were going to be fired up. That was why the community in Makoko was, you had several police vans around 6 a.m. in that community, ready to fire on the people. At Ordeal in the market, they placed police vans in the community ready to fire on the people. What's allowed the protest to
fire? You mean tear gas and all that?
To tear gas, to scatter people and all of that.
Okay.
It was only Femi Falana's call to the CP, insisting that we had the right as Nigerians to gather, that even allowed the protest to take off. And before the protest would take off, one superior police officer named Saliu, I do not remember his first name, but somebody I'd never seen before, he came to the protest and said that certain people could not march with us. And who are these people? Children who had been evicted, who are sleeping on canoes, whose parents brought to demonstrate, to show to the people. Because what the protest was about is to debunk all of the lies of the Lagos State Police, that they were not possibly evicting people. They have not killed anybody, either in Makoko or Ordeal or Woroshoki, and that what they were doing was simply urban renewal. So the whole purpose of the protest was to show physically all of the victims of this violence. We had pictures of those who had been killed. We had their relatives also there to speak to the media. At Kejanda Bridge, they said the children could not march with us, which we obliged. When we started moving, by the time we passed the Odo Market, nearing Ale Avenue, the police came again and said the mock coffin that we had with us, on which we had posted the pictures of those who were killed. 35 people killed in the Woroshoki, their pictures were there. 6 people.
Are these numbers confirmed?
They are confirmed. If journalists want to see the bodies of the 6 people who were killed in the Ordeal, in Mortuary. We can take you there. 12 people killed in Makoko, including a 5-day-old baby. We had their pictures there and their family members. We posted all of these pictures on the mock coffin and also had some pictures on picture frames. Because we wanted this evidence to be known to Lagosians, because we cannot have, but Lagos is not Gaza, where police will kill this much and there will be no outrage. There should be no Lagosian who should feel safe that this much people are killed in our communities. And the police is denying, the state government is not saying anything, and everybody thinks that what is just happening in Makoko is that they want to displace some people because the place is dirty. Yes, we have issues even on those points. But what I'm saying is that from the point of view of the violence that has been unleashed on people in these different places, Lagosians, not just the people who are affected, the entirety of Lagosians ought to have issues with this government. And that was the whole purpose of it. They asked us to release the mock coffin to them. So we had to, because the police said that if we did not release the mock coffin to them, the march will end at the podium. I'm telling you all of this to show where the violence started from, because the story that the Lagos State CP is carrying all about is that we were unruly, we were rude, we were violent. They were the ones who were doing everything to make the march impossible. It was that protest was one of the biggest protests in recent times in this state, and most organized. We had a first aid team that was, because we knew we were going to have elderly people in the protest. We had a solid first aid team. We had every provision whatsoever to ensure that we had a solid march. We gave them the coffin because we felt that without the coffin, we could still express ourselves. And then we kept on marching. You will notice that we did not stop at the usual Allen Avenue, which is our usual traditional stopping point. Because we felt that we did not want to give the police any reason at all, because they were already complaining traffic and all of that. And then we go to the House of Assembly. What led to the argument at the House of Assembly was that by the time we got to the Assembly, we met a police cordon, a fierce police cordon, led by the Commissioner of Police. And we said that protesters, they have a right to enter into the Assembly and sit down in the designated portion to be addressed by the lawmakers. And one of the things we told the CP was that for a people that you have done all of this to, they have been killed, many of them have been sleeping in canoes for weeks, the best thing you can do to them today, when they are crying for help, is to restore some dignity to them. Allowing them to stay in the sun here, for lawmakers to come and address them, is to even further, add to the dignity they are facing. The Commissioner of Police refused. Some lawmakers came out, 3 lawmakers. We also engaged them. They also refused. And we told the lawmakers, in December, late December 23 of the year, we had a protest in Lagos State, led by the Nigerian Labour Congress. I was at the protest. And we were received in this same designated place. We are aware of many APC members who have had protests from Moshood, different local governments, to that House of Assembly. And they were received in that designated place. So why are you saying these people cannot enter?
Let's talk about the House of Assembly. Were lawmakers on ground at the time this happened, and was there any reaction?
They were there. The Commissioner of Police asked them to move back.
The lawmakers.
Because what the Commissioner of Police does not know is that we have our own counterintelligence. We are not violent, but every time we are having our protests, we ensure that we place people in different places to be able to gather information so that if anything happens, we can know what I, for instance, was arrested with my back to the police. So I did not know what even happened. But when I came out yesterday, because immediately I came out, we went to a meeting immediately. And the information I had was that the Commissioner of Police was telling the honorable members to move back. That he had told them severally to move back. They should move back because he wanted to do something. So they moved back so that they will not be caught in that. So that the lawmakers cannot see that they are not aware or they were not in the know of what the police did on that day. That was a desecration, what the police did.
Okay.
A desecration of the House of Assembly, which is supposed to be a people's assembly. Now, the same lawmakers now, on the basis of what happened on that day, in order to now correct their image, they have sent a letter of invitation.
They've sent a letter of invitation
to Makoko, asking for unity. And we're happy about that. Because even though the Commissioner of Police and the police have treated me in this way, I'm going to sue them and sue them appropriately. You know that he sued them a year ago, and there's a 10 million naira award against the Nigerian police that they have not paid yet. We are going to sue them again for this. But we don't want this matter to just be about this. This matter is about Makoko. So that the meeting that they are planning for now, we consider it one of the victory of that protest. And we're going to ensure that we assemble a strong team of community representatives, CSOs, and lawyers to ensure that a clear and correct discussion, a comprehensive discussion about what needs to be done in Makoko, can be had.
And just to clarify, I mean, regarding the people that were injured, the CP, there was a video where he detailed not being aware of people that were injured. Let's take a look at the video of the CP, and then we'll come back to have Soweto respond to that.
Tell us why all of a sudden there was, that several canisters fired into the air and, dispersing the entire protesters.
Thank you so much. When I came in here, I don't work on sentiment. They assemble at under the bridge in Ikeja, and we give them enough protection to get to this venue. This to ensure that hoodlum and miscreant don't hijack this protest. And I advanced to this venue to wait for them. And they came, and I started talking to them on the need to ensure that we are peaceful. This is a public highway. Your right stops where that of other people begins. So we can't allow this highway to be blocked to traffic. So, and I asked them to stay in one place. That is not the fighting issue anyway, but it's important for people to know that I was abused. Pebbles were thrown on me. I endured that and stepped aside. I called on the leadership of the House of Assembly. Then I came to address them. And they addressed them. They refused to listen on the need to be law-abiding with what they are doing. Protest, if it's peaceful, is permitted. But where you use protest to block the public highway, you can see yourself when you capture them, they were seated on the public highway, which is...
And that is the CP, Mr. Jimoh. Let's have your response to that.
Well, the CP said we abused him. There's no way I can refrain from saying this, that what the CP just said just now is just a bunch of lies. I know that we consider that as another abuse, but the reality is that we have to state things as they are. What he has just said now, for those who are the protesters and journalists, they will know that they were just lies, because there was no point that anybody could have stoned the Commissioner of Police. There were no pebbles. Go back to the assembly ground now. There are no pebbles there for anybody to take and say you want to stone anyone. Like I said earlier, I was arrested at a point where I just addressed the crowd to sit down for lunch. We wanted to serve lunch. People needed to eat and have some water because we've been marching. And people complied. And that was where I was arrested. And in the charge sheet, there was nothing indicating in the charge sheet that anybody threw pebbles. In fact, unlike what the CP has been saying, that I called him a murderer, something which I do not withdraw anyway. But I found it surprising at the court yesterday that there was nothing about me calling him a murderer in the charge sheet. What the police said in the charge sheet was that we were singing abusive song at the government and the police. And I asked you, which protest anywhere in the world that you don't have abusive song? Which protest? Unless you are doing a church revival, that's when you sing praise and worship. A protest is first and foremost an expression of people's anger and disapproval. So abusive song is a part of protest. And we did call the police murderers. And how couldn't we? When you kill 35 people in Oworoshoki, then what are you? When you kill 12 people in Makoko, what are you? When you kill 6 people whose bodies are still in the morgue, what are you? I stand on this, that the police commissioner is responsible for the death of all of these people.
These are very
strong allegations.
And we are going to follow it up because we need justice for these people.
These are very
not
strong
statistics.
allegations.
There are strong allegations which we are going to carry forward and sue the police appropriately. We need justice for these are people's parents. A 5-year-old baby. Where is the outrage? This is not Gaza.
Soweto, I mean, we do understand how you feel.
What we should be having now is the Lagos Assembly or National Assembly setting up a panel, inviting the police commissioner and police command answer to that. What did your men do in Makoko? What did they do in Oworoshoki? What did they do in Owojo?
All right.
These are people, dead bodies, not statistics.
Soweto.
Okay. Soweto, thank you so much for joining us. I think what we'll do, as a broadcast channel, we'll do our best to invite the Commissioner of Police.
Please.
We would extend our invitation to him. We do understand he was on the station 2 days ago. I would further throw in the invitation again. Hopefully we'll have him next week. Seated here and answering to some of these allegations. They're weighty allegations you feel out there.
And I'm sure that you'll be able to defend them in court.
We hope that, I mean, since the matter is still in court, we'll wait till that happens.
They keep people.
Thank you so much. All right? Thank you.